Let me tell y'all something. Sometimes you don't realize how weak you are until somebody else puts that mirror up in your face. And right now, that mirror is called India. See, America's been walking around with its chest all puffed up, talking about how it's the strongest, the smartest, the richest. But India just stepped in the room, and without even trying, they pulled the curtain back. And baby, what's behind that curtain ain't all that pretty. Now, don't get it twisted. America's powerful, no doubt. But power don't mean perfection. And India, they got a way of showing the cracks in the foundation. They said, look here, while y'all over there flexing on everybody, we over here building brains, building businesses, building tech, building medicine. That's the kind of quiet strength that doesn't need to announce itself. It shows up, and suddenly everybody realizes the game done changed. Here's the weakness America got comfortable. When you comfortable, you stop grinding. You start thinking the world owes you something. But India, man, they still hungry. Hungry people learn faster, work harder, and outthink you when you ain't paying attention. That's why so many of the apps you're using, the medicine you're taking, the code running your whole life, guess where it's coming from? See, the weakness America got is the same weakness a lot of us got: pride. Pride blinds you. Pride makes you think you're untouchable. Pride makes you ignore the little guy until the little guy shows up swinging. India been studying the game, staying in the cut, and now they're exposing the truth. Brains beat biceps every time. And the lesson, don't ever underestimate who you think is beneath you. Because while you're bragging, they're building. While you're sleeping, they're strategizing. And when the light finally shines, you realize they're not behind you anymore. They're standing right next to you, if not ahead of you. Power don't mean perfection. India revealed the cracks in America's foundation. See, when people think about power, they think it's unshakable, like some giant fortress standing tall in the middle of a storm. They think power is this image of strength where nothing can touch you, nothing can move you, and nothing can shake you. But what people forget is that even the strongest building has weak points, even the biggest man in the room got a soft spot, and even the loudest voice can hide insecurity. That's what America has been walking around with for so long, this big reputation of being untouchable, unbeatable, the top dog in every arena. But India has quietly been showing the world that power without perfection is fragile, and the cracks in that image start to show when someone else brings a different kind of strength to the table. America built its image on military might, economic control, cultural dominance, and the idea that it leads in innovation. For decades, people bought into that story, and in many ways, it was true. But just because you were leading yesterday doesn't mean you're leading today, and it definitely doesn't guarantee you'll be leading tomorrow. India is that reminder that strength doesn't have to look like muscle or money. Sometimes strength looks like resilience, patience, and strategy. Sometimes it looks like putting in the work quietly while the other guy is showing off loudly. That's why when India makes a move in technology, education, or global partnerships, the world stops and pays attention, because it's not the loud announcement America is used to making, it's the quiet confidence of results speaking louder than words. The cracks get exposed when you realize America's weakness isn't just about resources or systems, it's about mindset. America got comfortable thinking nobody could catch up. Comfort is the enemy of progress, because once you think you've made it, you stop hustling the way you used to. You stop fighting like you're hungry. India, on the other hand, has been hungry for opportunity, hungry for recognition, hungry for growth. That hunger fuels innovation, fuels discipline, fuels creativity. While America flexes its past victories, India focuses on its future moves. And the world is beginning to notice which approach really pays off in the long run. Perfection was never the requirement to be powerful. But if you don't keep sharpening yourself, someone else is going to expose the dull edges. India has been sharpening itself in areas that America thought it already had locked down, like technology, medicine, and global influence. That's the crack in the foundation. It's not that America doesn't still have strength, it's that the image of perfection of being unchallenged is no longer believable. India showed that power isn't about shouting the loudest or spending the most, it's about building the kind of influence that can't be ignored. And once those cracks are visible, everybody sees that the fortress wasn't as indestructible as it seemed. Comfort breeds weakness, hunger creates strength. When you're comfortable, you stop pushing yourself. You stop grinding like you used to. You start thinking you've arrived. Comfort is that soft pillow that makes you stay in bed instead of getting up early to chase what you want. It's that voice in your head that says, you've done enough. You don't need to go harder. But the truth is, comfort is dangerous because it makes you forget the struggle that built you in the first place. America has been living in comfort for so long that it started believing it could never fall behind. That's where the weakness creeps in, not because the country doesn't have talent or resources, but because the drive that once made it unstoppable isn't the same anymore. When you get too used to winning, you forget how to fight to win again. On the other side, hunger is the fuel that creates real strength. Hunger makes you stay up late. Hunger makes you learn faster. Hunger makes you figure things out when the odds are stacked against you. India has been driven by hunger. Hunger for opportunity, hunger for recognition, hunger for growth. That hunger has pushed them to work harder, study longer, innovate smarter, and never take success for granted. The difference between comfort and hunger is the difference between someone jogging because they feel like it and someone running for their life. Hunger puts urgency in your steps, and urgency creates momentum that's hard to stop. When a nation or a person is comfortable, they start making excuses. They start leaning on what they did yesterday instead of proving themselves today. They say, we're already the best, and stop noticing that somebody else is catching up right behind them. But hungry people don't make excuses, they make moves. They don't have time to brag about what they're going to do because they're too busy doing it. Hunger turns weakness into creativity, lack into resourcefulness, and struggle into skill. That's why some of the most successful leaders, innovators, and creators come out of environments where they didn't have everything handed to them. Comfort spoils ambition, but hunger sharpens it. Look at how hunger shows up in education and technology. Students in India push themselves relentlessly because they know competition is fierce, opportunities are limited. And the only way forward is through hard work. That hunger creates some of the brightest minds in the world. And those minds are now shaping industries, running companies, and building systems that influence everyone. Compare that to America, where comfort has made too many people expect success without the grind, expecting results without the discipline. That's where the weakness lies, when entitlement replaces effort, when pride replaces preparation. Hunger builds resilience. When you're hungry, setbacks don't break you. They teach you you don't give up because giving up means staying stuck where you are, and hunger won't let you stay stuck. Weakness comes from believing you've already made it, but strength comes from knowing you've still got more to prove. Hunger forces you to keep chasing, to keep improving, and that's why hunger always beats comfort in the long run. Brains will always outlast biceps in the long game. Strength might get you attention in the moment. It might intimidate people temporarily, but intellect is what keeps you ahead when the dust settles. Muscles can win you a fight today, but knowledge builds a strategy that wins wars tomorrow. That's what America has been showing with its display of power, military strength, economic dominance, a presence that says we're the strongest. But India has been proving something deeper, that brains, discipline, and long-term vision outlast any show of force. You can be the biggest in the room, but if the smaller one outthinks you, eventually the power shifts. When you rely only on biceps, you think everything can be solved by pushing harder, spending more, flexing louder. That mindset works for a while, but it doesn't sustain. Brains know how to use less to achieve more, how to strategize, how to turn disadvantages into advantages. That's the kind of power that doesn't fade, it multiplies. India has been using brains to climb step by step into areas where raw force can't compete. You can't muscle your way into innovation. You can't flex your way into technological dominance. You can't outspend somebody forever if they've built a smarter, leaner, more resilient system. That's where brains always take over. The difference between biceps and brains is speed versus endurance. Biceps get you a sprint, brains get you a marathon. America flexed for decades with its biceps, and the world acknowledged that strength. But brains are patient. Brains don't need to rush. Brains stay in the lab, in the classroom, in the boardroom, building a foundation brick by brick until one day the results are undeniable. That's why India's influence is rising in technology, medicine, and education. That rise didn't happen with an explosion of force. It happened quietly, consistently, with minds working behind the scenes while the rest of the world was distracted by loud displays of power. Brains also outlast biceps because brains create the very tools that biceps end up depending on. Think about it. Muscle needs machines, muscle needs weapons, muscle needs systems. And all of those are born from thought, not force. If you control the thinking, you control the tools. If you control the tools, eventually you control the outcome. That's how brains become the ultimate strength, because they make even muscle bow down to them. America can flex all it wants, but when the software, the code, the medical solutions, the innovations are coming from somewhere else, that's where the real power lies. Brains are also transferable. You can pass knowledge, you can teach it, you can scale it across millions of people. You can't transfer muscle the same way. That's why generations of Indian students, engineers, And entrepreneurs are creating momentum that can't be stopped. Once knowledge spreads, it multiplies. Biceps shrink with age, but brains grow stronger with use. That's the difference between a temporary display and a permanent advantage, and that's why brains will always have the last word in the game of power. While America was bragging, India was building. There's a big difference between talking about what you can do and actually putting in the work to do it. America has been in the spotlight for so long that it got used to performing for the crowd, bragging about its wins, reminding everybody of its status as the leader. But bragging don't lay foundations. Bragging don't create industries. Bragging don't train the next generation. India took the opposite approach while America was telling the story. India was writing one. They didn't need to make a scene about it. They just needed to keep stacking wins in silence until the noise of results spoke, louder than words ever could. Bragging gives you attention, but building gives you legacy. That's what a lot of people miss. You can brag all day about being the strongest, the richest, the smartest, but if you're not building anything to back it up, it's only a matter of time before somebody else catches up. India used its time wisely, focusing on education, focusing on science, focusing on technology, focusing on infrastructure. While America was holding press conferences and flexing military might, India was investing in the future, training minds, creating solutions, and preparing itself to stand shoulder to shoulder with the so-called leaders. Bragging creates a temporary high. It makes you feel powerful in the moment. It's like showing off muscles at the gym, but never actually lifting the heavy weights. Building is harder, it's slower, and it doesn't always look impressive in the beginning. But when the building is finished, when the system is in place, when the foundation is solid, that's when the world sees the difference. India chose to build, and now those results are undeniable. They didn't spend all their energy telling people how great they were going to be. They put that energy into actually becoming it. Another thing about bragging is that it makes you predictable. If you're always talking, people know your every move, but building in silence makes you unpredictable. People don't see you coming until you're already there. America underestimated India because they thought bragging equaled leading. But when India showed up with results, it exposed the weakness of relying too much on talk and not enough on execution. By the time you realize somebody's been building while you were bragging, it's too late to stop them. Building creates respect. Bragging demands it. Respect that comes from building is stronger because people can see the evidence. It's not hype. It's not talk. It's not a claim. It's proof. India built proof. Proof in their engineers, proof in their scientists, proof in their global partnerships, proof in their industries. That proof doesn't need a commercial. It doesn't need a speech. It doesn't need a slogan. The work speaks for itself. America's bragging kept the spotlight on them, but India's building shifted the ground beneath them. And when the ground shifts, the spotlight doesn't matter anymore. Pride blinds you to who's catching up beside you. Pride is one of those things that makes you feel good for a while, but slowly eats away at your vision. When you're full of pride, you stop looking around, you stop paying attention to what's happening outside your circle, and you convince yourself that nobody else can touch you. America has been operating with that kind of pride for decades, walking around with the belief that being number one is permanent, that nobody else is even close. But pride is a dangerous mask. It hides the truth. While America was blinded by its own reflection, India was moving step by step closer, and by the time the prideful eyes opened, the competition wasn't far away in the distance. It was standing right next to them. Pride convinces you that your past victories are enough to secure your future. It makes you rely on reputation instead of reinvention. America has been leaning on its history, pointing back to what it achieved, how it dominated, how it changed the world. But the world doesn't stand still. Nations that are hungry keep moving forward, keep learning, keep adapting. India didn't sit around in awe of America's past. Instead, it studied, strategized, and worked tirelessly to close the gap. Pride said nobody could catch up, but hunger and persistence proved otherwise. The problem with pride is that it creates blind spots. When you're too busy admiring yourself, you don't notice the cracks forming underneath you. America's pride made it overlook areas where it was slipping, education systems struggling, industries slowing down, innovation gaps widening. Those blind spots are exactly where India stepped in, filling spaces with talent, creativity, and efficiency. By the time America noticed, the blind spots had become openings, and the pride that once felt like armor now felt like a weakness. Another thing pride does is it makes you underestimate others. America underestimated India for years, seeing it as just a follower, not a leader. But while being underestimated, India was preparing, sharpening its strengths, and positioning itself for the moment when the world would have to take notice. Underestimation is a gift to the hungry because it gives them time to grow without pressure, time to build without interference, and time to surprise the ones who thought they'd never be a threat. Pride handed India that opportunity on a silver platter. Pride also slows growth because it tricks you into thinking you don't need to change. When you believe you've already arrived, you stop evolving. That's where America showed weakness, believing its dominance was automatic, permanent, and unquestionable. India, without the luxury of pride, had no choice but to evolve constantly, to find new ways to compete, to make progress against every obstacle. That mindset is what creates breakthroughs, and those breakthroughs are exactly what put India side by side with the very nation that once thought it was untouchable. Pride blinded America to the race being run right beside it, and now the finish line doesn't look so one-sided anymore. Never underestimate the quiet worker. They'll outthink you before you notice. The quiet worker doesn't need the spotlight, doesn't need the applause, doesn't need to announce every little step. They're the ones who stay focused when everybody else is distracted. The ones who keep putting in effort day after day without broadcasting it to the world. America has been loud with its power, making sure everyone knows about its victories, its influence, its status. India, on the other hand, has been that quiet worker, staying disciplined in the background, investing in knowledge, training minds, and slowly building strength in areas that matter most. That's the danger of underestimating the quiet ones. You don't see the work until it's already turned into results too big to ignore. The quiet worker has an advantage because they don't waste energy proving themselves before the job is done. All of their energy goes into the grind, into perfecting the process, into sharpening the skills. That's exactly what India has been doing, quietly producing engineers, doctors, scientists, entrepreneurs, and leaders who now sit in some of the most powerful positions around the globe. By the time the noisemakers notice,